Russia could drop a missile as a biohazard. Well, monkeypox isn't transmitted through air, so how does that make sense?
Jillian Michaels coming to me kind of sort of live from her studio in Los Angeles, California. And I am not in my Sage Steele Show studio, but it doesn't matter. The beauty of technology. Hello, my friend. How are you?
Hi, buddy. How are you?
I am great. Here's the thing. People don't realize that since we met in the spring, since you came on my show and had the best time. I mean, I had the best time. I'm sure that you did too. Just say you did. We became best friends and we talk and text all the time, right? So I just thought, what the heck? There's so much in the news. Can we just take some of these topics and go public with them? Because you, girlfriend, have a lot to say, a lot of important things to say. I've told you this before and you boo me, but like I'm smarter when I discuss these things with you, whether we agree or not. And that's what we need more of in this freaking country, yes?
Agree completely. With you 100%.
Okay. So, like I said, you have a lot to say. And in particular, this past week, for those people who missed it, number one, shame on you. Number two, Jillian was in the nation's capital testifying before Congress about something that is obviously near and dear to your heart, Jillian, but about the chronic disease epidemic in America that is killing us. It is literally killing us. You called out the companies that push the UFPs, the ultra processed foods.
Yeah.
How am I doing? I'm learning, which
great.
Obviously are linked to multiple diseases, chronic illnesses, cancers. The list is long and seemingly growing. So for those of you who didn't see the testimony, please go online, go to Jillian's Facebook, watch it. Here is one clip, one snippet that I think, well, I still have chills after watching it. Take a look.
And while I have been fortunate enough to pull many back from the edge, over the course of my 30-year career, I have lost just as many, if not more, than I have saved. I have watched them slip through my fingers. Mothers that orphaned their children, husbands that widowed their wives. I have even watched parents forced to suffer the unthinkable loss of their adult children. There are not words to express the sadness I have felt and the fury, knowing that they were literally sacrificed at the altar of unchecked corporate greed.
Okay, let's start with this.
Jillian, real quick, what stood out to me in that was your passion. Obviously, it is so rare. I've watched a lot of those meetings there on Capitol Hill in front of Congress. People don't stop and clap. You got a standing ovation at the end of your testimony. But at that moment, tell me what you were feeling as you were able to share something so important to the world.
I was feeling like my entire career had led up to that moment, and I better not blow it. Honestly, all of the frustration, all of the anger, all of the sadness was being channeled into this moment where you're sitting in front of the people who can effectuate a systemic change that we need so desperately. And I'll explain that in just a moment. But it really has been building up to this, Sage. In fact, I'll explain it now. And the reason I say that is because obviously I want and we desperately need for people to take agency, right? We want them to eat less. We want them to move more. We want them to use common sense with their food choices. However, you've got 10,000 chemicals in our food here in America and only 400 of those chemicals in Europe or Canada. Roughly 1 in 30 kids is diagnosed with autism. 79% increase in early onset cancer diagnosis over the past 30 years. A 30-year-old man today has the testosterone levels of a 50-year-old man 30 years ago. Teens have fatty liver disease. 74% of the population is overweight or obese. We've got more autoimmune conditions. Infertility is going up at a rate of 1% a year. The numbers are unprecedented. Everything is going up all at the same time. And it isn't just people who are overweight or obese. It's also skinny people that are getting very sick. And that's the point that we're trying to make is while people are trying to take matters into their own hands, they need systemic change. And unfortunately, there is so much corruption in the relationship between the FDA and big pharma, big food, big farming, big insurance, that the raw economic incentives are simply not there. And that's what we were trying to bring awareness to. And to address one other thing you said, for anybody who didn't see it, shame on you. Well, here's the thing. This is what makes it very interesting, is that it didn't get picked up in any of the left-leaning or center media.
Yeah.
It did get picked up by Fox. It did get picked up by Megyn Kelly, Joe Rogan, yourself. A lot of really big independent media channels covered it. Tucker, of course. And then we did see Daily Mail pick it up. The Atlantic is the only one that wrote something about it outside of the more center-right and right-leaning news outlets. And they came out and they said, woo-woo meets MAGA. Okay, now, it was totally nonpartisan. We had MDs from Stanford, Harvard, and Johns Hopkins. And my point here is that the reason this is not getting picked up is because 75% of the advertising dollars for all of these channels come from big food and big pharma. And when you do get an opportunity to be on News Nation and debate with Dan Abrams, which I'm grateful for that opportunity, or CNBC or CNN, they will always make you look like a kook. So they make it very clear that you're a kook, that you're anti-science,
right.
Or you're a fat shamer, or you're Ozempic shaming. But I'm grateful for the time because I believe the audience is smart enough to make up their own mind. But the fact that we are now making health an alt-right political position is deeply alarming, and I think that people will begin to defect. I really do.
You know, it's interesting because within the last 24, 48 hours, Frank Luntz, of all people, came out and tweeted a graphic about how more people are identifying as Republican, 48% to 45% Democrat for the first time in decades. And you and I agree, RD, whatever, just do the right thing for the country, red, blue, we actually don't care. But I believe it is because of issues like this where people are saying, you know what? You've crossed the line, just like you did on my show 3 or 4 months ago when, wait, I'm liberal, I'm from California, I'm gay, all of the things. And if you are doing that, then I'm out of here. So when they push you too far, that's the concern. My question for you, my final question for you on this topic before we move on is you spoke so impassionately on right there in Capitol Hill with all of those people, like you said, the doctors and the true experts. So now what?
Great question.
What is the hope?
Here's what we're doing.
What do we do to go forward and to implement the changes that you pointed out needed to happen?
I love that you're asking this, Sage. I wish I could have this up by the time this show airs, but I was actually speaking with Callie Means, who organized this entire event. And Callie is the brother of Dr. Casey Means, graduated top of her medical class at Stanford. He graduated Harvard Business School, and he was a lobbyist turned whistleblower for big food and big pharma. And now he's using his knowledge and understanding of Washington to create events like this to raise awareness. The goal from here on out is to create some grassroots actionable steps for people listening and following along. So it's like, here's a form letter, send it to your representative, copy, paste, here's how you find your representative. Here's a petition to Kellogg's to give us the same formulation of their crappy cereal that they give to people in Canada. In Canada or Europe, the cereal is colored with beetroot. Here it's red 40. Carrots, here it's like blue 1, because the more neon it is, the more profitable it is, because kids will eat it. So sign this petition, and then we're going to start cracking down on specific companies, because the gentleman by the name of Jason Carr, who he's absolutely brilliant, but he's invested strategically in many of these different food companies, and he's going to guide us so that, let's say we boycott General Mills. He goes, if you make just a 5% dent in their bottom line, he goes, they will change like that. So if we can strategically tell people, great, until there's change, nobody's buying cereals from General Mills. They will make a change lightning fast. So we're
Just
working
like,
on
look
it.
what happened with Bud Light,
That's
right?
exact, girl. That's it. So we are working on it. We are putting it together now, and we're going to be able to give people very simple, actionable steps that we can do en masse to hopefully implement very powerful systemic change quick.
I love it. And again, I tried to put myself in your shoes and it's impossible because I could feel the emotion with which you were speaking and all your life to lead to that moment from that little girl who was scared
Right.
and obese and got into martial arts. And that's how your life changed. And now you're changing millions more. So thank you for what you did. And now onward. And so you'll send that out via your social media channels
Yes,
and your show
we will.
for the petitions for people to sign. So we are all in it together. Next up, let's just stick with the health stuff. And oh, hi, monkeypox.
Oh my God, Sage.
I have to tell you, when I heard about this, I saw something online. You're like, okay, whatever. And then I got a call from my 22-year-old daughter, who is a senior in college.
Yep.
And I happened to be dropping off my freshman in college, and I was at Walmart shopping for her when my 22-year-old called and started crying. She's like, Mom, is this happening again? It ruined the end of her high school years, prom, graduation, gone because of COVID and then the lies that were told around it and that people believed and changed these kids' lives. And she's like, and Mom, now I'm a senior in college and it's happening again. The question is it? So when this came up, Varmagate surrounding monkeypox, and then you and I began speaking about it, we're like, oh, hell no. We're going to talk about this thing. So his name is Dr. Jay Varma, who happened to be New York City's COVID czar. We have a lot of czars these days who did or didn't do interesting things. I don't know, the border czar, Kamala Harris, the COVID czar, Dr. Jay Varma. So you real quick before we get into now the controversy surrounding monkeypox with him, but what happened with him as New York City's COVID czar, and then there's been some repercussions, some fallout from
Oh my gosh. Okay, so in case anybody missed it, this scumbag was caught undercover on an undercover camera bragging about how he created all these COVID lockdowns while he was secretly throwing and attending orgies, quite literally. By the way, did you not get the memo on the sex orgy thing? Wasn't it like
missed
Diddy?
that one, and I was near New York. Why didn't they invite me?
Girl, I mean, not that I would have gone, but my God, I didn't know this was so prevalent. I actually worked with Diddy, believe it or not. Never got the invite to the orgy. Thank God. But that said, so a lot of people were really angry about the hypocrisy, but that's the least of the problems. He goes on to brag quite similarly to the way Fauci did at those, in a few interviews and at the congressional hearings, where they made people's lives as difficult as possible, said individual right here, to get that vaccine. It's like, you'll be fired, your kids won't be able to go to school, you won't be able to travel, you won't be able to eat at a restaurant. And let me just say, smallpox happens to be eradicated because of vaccinations. In my personal opinion, everything is a cost-benefit analysis. If somebody had come to me and said, COVID is killing people, I got the vaccine, by the way, and I never thought twice about it. If COVID is killing people, Jill, you need to get it, herd immunity. Now I've heard the argument, well, but everybody else can get the vaccine, so they won't get it. Why does it matter if I do? And then you get the developing world conversation, right? Well, people in the developing world don't have the vaccine, so if we don't get the vaccine and we travel, you could kill a bunch of innocent people in parts of the world where they can't get the vaccines for measles and so on and so forth. I'll even go down that rabbit hole with you, I'll buy it. The issue with the COVID vaccine is that you still catch COVID. So it's not going to stop anybody from getting it. So now you're now just robbing people. You don't even have that argument of, could it do harm to somebody else if you don't get it? You're robbing them of their personal freedom over their own body. And he goes on to talk about how they pressurized people to get this vaccine. And then he goes on to talk about in these hidden videos, and I encourage, I'm sure you'll show clips, but I encourage everybody to look it up. It's out there. that the data on the vaccines was preliminary. And now you've got Varmagate 2 with this
Yes.
drug. What's it called? I wrote it down. Is it T-pox? What the hell is this thing called?
Yes, that's
T-pox.
the abbreviated. And,
Yes.
and actually, and the clip I'm going to show you in a second, he does go into a little bit more detail about that, but it's fascinating. I will say the guy has now been fired as of a couple of days ago because
How about
of
prison?
admitting all
Prison,
that was going
anyone?
on during the hi, yes, please, right? During the COVID lockdowns, et cetera, which were brutal in New York City. So from that, I want people to have the background on why this dude is scum of the earth, as you said. But yeah, so he has now admitted, and it was recorded by an undercover reporter from Steven Crowder's show, and it's Mug Club. And so let's take a listen to that real quick so people fully comprehend what this man has admitted.
We're working on is not necessarily nice back then. We're working on a drug for a disease called monkeypox. Remember this big outbreak a couple years ago? Mostly spread among gay men and stuff like that. Honestly, in the United States, the risk is very low. It's only primarily transmitted among gay men, but it doesn't spread very often. There is some spread between men and women in Africa, but it's mostly among sex workers. And for a disease like this, which kind of like gives you ugly rashes all over your body, people will like want to get treated. Whereas with COVID, it's a little harder because it's kind of like, oh, it feels like a cold. Do I really need a medication? For to treat this disease. So it's a virus that you get and it causes bumps all over your body. Monkeypox.
What's the drug called?
It's called Tecovirimat, or T-pox is the name of it.
T-pox.
Yeah. So they just did a big global announcement about monkeypox because there's a bunch of cases in Africa and stuff. And so there was a
Who did a global announcement?
The World Health Organization did an announcement about a public health emergency. It's like all over the news and stuff. And they want to stop it from spreading around the world. So that's going to make people sick because there's going to be another outbreaks of it. But it's not going to spread among the general population. It's almost certainly going to stay primarily among gay men, maybe some women in certain settings.
Okay.
Isn't that great? Thank you to Steven Crowder's show for going undercover to talk to this guy who has now admitted not just the COVID sex parties, but basically that this thing is nothing. But we have the drug to cure it after we scare everybody, thanks to the World Health Organization making an announcement, which is the reason why my daughter
He's on
called
the
me in tears
advisory
again.
board of the WHO, by the way, and the drug doesn't work. Did you see that, Sage? It didn't work in the studies. So they took this drug. Okay, so I watched this whole thing through when you sent it to me so I could speak to you in an eloquent fashion, or somewhat educated fashion on it. So, all right, there's no such thing. This was utilized for smallpox, guys. There's no more smallpox because of the vaccines in the 70s, so I think it's important to note that. Now then, they are making governments, through fear-mongering, stockpile the drugs up to the tune of like a $500 million contract with the United States government under the pretense, and he says this literally, that Russia could drop a missile with smallpox. So you better stockpile this drug in case Russia tries to give us all smallpox. And I'm thinking to myself, does he mean monkeypox or smallpox? Because we've all been vaccinated against smallpox. So is it monkeypox? But the best part is it doesn't work. It's not efficacious in treating monkeypox in the study that they did. It had the exact same result as the placebo, which was proper food and proper medical care. Because remember, this was done in the developing world. Then, did you see the part about how he goes on to talk about spinning that study in the mainstream media? Sage.
Yes, like acknowledging how easily they can spin and trick the media to tell us what to do, what not to do. Basically, the fear-mongering all over again that everybody is still trying to recover from with COVID.
He goes on to say, I'm hooked up with the New York Times, Politico, the Washington Post. I know all the journalists. And he's spinning the narrative so that he's hoping, he goes on to say, he hopes that while they can say, yes, this study, it wasn't done properly. In other words, it wasn't designed the right way. It's very efficacious, and it's used in an emergency. So this emergency bifurcates all of the necessities, I'm guessing, that would go into authorizing this drug. Because It doesn't work. And then he goes on to say, because if we don't, then the stock will go to zero and the company will be worthless.
Yes.
The company, by the way, that has a $500 million market cap and the largest shareholders are Vanguard, BlackRock, and State Street. Girl.
Yeah.
Sage, go.
Here we are again.
Go. Go.
I'm just talking about, and then they wonder why we don't trust. We don't trust the government.
Nope.
Because they're obviously all tied up in this. We don't trust the medical profession. We don't trust doctors anymore who are still getting paid off from saying you really, really, really should get this vaccine. You go into Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, and you hear on the loudspeaker the COVID booster, here, weather's coming. Like it doesn't end. So in your professional opinion, and I know you're not a doctor, but you're a hell of a lot closer to a doctor than the people who actually are MDs these days, it seems. What happens if in the next couple of months, and by the way, I predicted something like this, I'm not alone, right before the election, right? I mean, when I got the call from when this really blew up a month ago.
It's not going to do that. I'm going to say it's not going there.
It's not a coincidence.
See, I think they can't go there.
So what do we do then, Jillian? When we get it, do we just ignore it? Like, what do we do when the WHO comes out again? And then what if it gets to the point of schools and people saying, hey, get another vaccine or else? What do we do?
Okay. The first thing I would say is, listen, I always thought Steven Crowder was a conspiracy theorist, Sage. I've always believed in vaccines for the simple reason that we no longer have smallpox, right? I was like, oh, stop. They're saving lives. It's one of the greatest inventions in medical history. But here's the reality. Two things can be true at once. And what I mean is that everything in medicine is a cost-benefit analysis. And Dr. Drew says this, he elucidates this really well. Point being, do your cost-benefit analysis. Will it stop you from getting COVID? The answer is no. Okay.
No.
What are your chances of surviving COVID? Like, are you morbidly obese? Are you elderly? Will it mitigate the severity of your case? Are there therapeutics that could be helpful? All these conversations should be happening with a doctor you trust. So for me, number one, it's not going to stop me from getting it. It won't stop me from spreading it. I know I can survive it. I've already survived it before the vaccine even existed. There's no benefit to getting it. Zero. It's off the table. If you came to me and said, monkeypox will kill you, it is like smallpox, and it's easily communicable, okay, I would take the side effects of the vaccine versus dying from monkeypox. But we know it's very difficult to catch, that there are arguably other therapeutics that could help us manage this. The drug doesn't work. It doesn't work. It had the same, according to this guy, and the study that they did, it had the exact same effects as the placebo, which was proper medical care and proper nutrition. So then the answer again would be no. But I've gotten many different vaccines. Like I've traveled all over the world. I got yellow fever. You know what I mean? This is meaning I got the vaccine for yellow fever.
Yes.
I travel all over the world. If there was a malaria vaccine, I would get it. I would, because malaria is no joke. And as I mentioned, I travel quite a bit. This should be an individual decision, period, that people make with their doctor, where they are given all of the facts. And I also don't think what you take away from this, it's not so much that your doctor's working against you. They're not. Doctors are operating on what they're being told, and they're being pressurized from every single angle. So they're being sued, they're being attacked, they're being taken off. We saw Mark Zuckerberg come out and say, yeah, I silenced doctors and different individuals during COVID. I was forced to by the White House. The key here is, without going too deep down a rabbit hole, have a plan of educating yourself, playing out your cost-benefit analysis with a medical professional you trust, because it is different for every individual. If you were a gay man and you did in fact run the risk of monkeypox, and it was in fact killing people, and there was in fact a vaccine, although this is a therapeutic, I think, not a vaccine, then you could make that decision. But for you and I, who are not having promiscuous sex, I'm married, I'm not getting monkeypox, I'm not getting this vaccine or taking the therapeutics under any circumstance.
Yes, thank you. A couple of things there. Number one, yes, we need to educate ourselves and make sure we understand how it's transmitted, et cetera. And even this doctor, this scum doctor, was acknowledging that this is primarily with gay men sex, et cetera. It's such a tiny percentage, basically in other countries where it is transmitted in any other way, but it's certainly not an airborne virus like they were saying it was with COVID. The problem with trying to educate ourselves is what? The other thing that the scumbag doctor said, that he is manipulating the media companies. So the issue is, where do you get your information from in order to be educated? And so it all comes back to the same thing, and it is just doing your research. And I think having hesitation a little bit, because I'm like you, I was called an anti-vaxxer, even though I took the vax only because I was forced to take the vax to keep my job at ESPN Disney. At the end of the day, I vaccinated my children with all of the things back in the day, never gave them a flu vaccine, haven't done any of those things. But the reason why is because we know with polio, we know that it is proven through years and years and years, in this case, decades of research, and the FDA being involved for decades and decades. COVID was different. This thing is different. If it works, which we only know based on years of research, I got you. But if not, and you're shoving it down my throat and forcing it, I'm out. So right now, what we can say is, if you're hearing, take the monkeypox vax, at this point, ignore it. The question is, are you ignoring things, Jillian Michaels, when we get crazy things like voicemails being sent to us from the Centers for Disease Control? Jill, everybody needs to know, Jill sent me this clip, this voicemail that you received. Like,
here's what happened. Here's what happened. I didn't receive it. So in my so we've created a little think tank. So all the people that were at the Capitol, and it's like Courtney Swan and oh my God, Dr. Casey Means and everybody I mentioned, the Food Babe, all these different people. We've started a little group now on text of like, okay, how can we organize, share this post, let's get this message out. So somebody dropped that thing that I sent you into the chat. And I was like, guys, this is fake. This can't be real. And then I got a link that it is, people are getting it all over the country, this voice message that I just sent you. And it is in fact real.
Okay, I'm gonna play it. Let's talk about it right afterwards.
Hello. I'm calling on behalf of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. We are conducting the National Immunization Survey, a nationwide survey about childhood immunization. Would you please call us at 1-877-220-4805 to let us know whether or not there are any children between 6 months and 17 years old living or staying in this household. The number again is 1-877-220-4805. Thank you.
Go. What the hell is that?
I don't know. I actually have no idea. And I did try to research it. I Googled the phone number. They sent me the link. And they say you don't have to participate. You don't have to answer some of the questions. Never in my life, never in my childhood, never in my adult life as a mom have I heard of anything like that. What kids do you have in your household? This is between me and my pediatrician. I don't know. I don't know, Sage.
It is so scary to me. And again, it goes back to trust. I think years ago, many of us wouldn't have questioned it. But now, when I was talking about this earlier, when I re-listened to this voicemail clip that you sent me, and I thought, remember at the beginning of COVID, and they're like, well, vaccines or even getting COVID, don't worry about it if your kid is 20 years or younger. And then it was 12. And then it was 8. And then it was 4. Now we need 6-month-old babies that are supposed to get vaccinated. So now you want to know who's in my house and what ages? Here, give me a call. It sounds sick. And this isn't a census report. Like, sorry, I'm not picking up that phone.
You know what's crazy though is they know everything about us. You have all of our information, our social security numbers. We have a listening device attached to us all the time in our phone. Then I think, come on, Jill, this is already out there. What's the matter with you? I'm not calling. But you can't help but be concerned because it's simply unprecedented. This has never happened before. And then when you've got these individuals like Dr. J. Varma bragging about how, the drug doesn't actually work, but we're gonna spin the narrative in the most respected publications around the world because we don't want the stock of the company to go to zero. And then here's another part, and I don't mean to go back to our last subject, but he literally says in that video, Russia could drop a missile with this either monkeypox or smallpox as a biohazard. Well, monkeypox isn't transmitted through air, so how does that make sense? And he got governments to stockpile it, and then if we have a smallpox vaccine, how does that make sense? And they're using tax dollars to purchase $500 million worth of this drug that doesn't even work, and I can't even figure out how it would be communicable under that pretense. So you wonder why we go down this tin hat rabbit hole. This is why. I want to go back, Sage. Take me back to the blue pill, girl. Like, I don't mean Democrat. I mean Neo in the Matrix. Like, plug me back in. Oh my God.
I know. That's exactly how I feel. And it's funny, I told you about my older daughter, Quinn, and she's 22, and she's got this old soul. And she's like, Mom, I think I was just born at the wrong time. I wish I'd been born in the 1950s. And you wear your poodle skirts and you go to dances and you go to drive-in movies, and the music isn't something that your parents had to protect you from. Like, I don't know. I don't know where we are, but the thing is we have to continue to talk about these things because we're not alone. There's millions who are questioning, but they're like, again, they're afraid to bring it up. You and I have said, screw it. And we're going to talk about all of these things. Okay. The last major topic I want to talk about with you is about Diddy, P. Diddy.
Gosh,
and again, I go back to the 90s and he was our guy. Like, this is who we all, I mean, the music, and it was fun, and
I know.
parties, and now look where we are. And I don't even remember how many different charges there are with sex trafficking, sexual abuse, racketeering. It's endless. And now the list, I mean, it's like Epstein. Are we going to actually see an official list here? Or is everybody going to protect him because, they might be involved or be connected to those who are involved? Speaking of connections, when you and I were talking about this,
I know
you have a little bit of a personal experience to share with this.
This is silly, and you guys are going to be disappointed in this story because it doesn't go anywhere good. I wasn't at the butt naked party, but it's kind of funny because years ago, Mark Wahlberg had invested in this water company called Aqua Hydrate, and he got Sean, AKA Diddy, involved, and then there was Ron Burkle and all these different guys who were invested in this water company. And I'll never forget my business partner. I was like, gee, water's water. You know, what are we trying to reinvent the wheel on water?
Exactly.
And he goes, it's not that, because we're putting money into the company. They're not paying me to do a water ad. And I didn't really feel like parting with the money. I didn't really believe in it. And he goes, it's not that meaning believe it would sell for $1 gazillion, because it's too competitive a market. So long story short, he's like, I want you to pay into this, not because you are excited for a huge payout. You're basically buying being on a billboard with Mark and Sean. You're buying the association with Sean. And to this day, I'm like, are you happy? Are you happy with yourself now? So I give him a bunch of shit for it.
My goodness.
But there was a moment. So Mark, lovely, salt of the earth. Sean, I never actually met in person. And
you didn't?
Hold on. So he had a woman that ran his company by the name of Erica, who I actually happened to like. And Erica kept saying, we got to get you to meet Sean. We got to get you to meet Sean. We got to get you to meet Sean. And I was like, yeah, okay, sure, whatever. I get an invite from her. I guess he was having some sort of like players week at his house, like athletes. And she's like, Sean says that you can come and train all the athletes. And I wrote back, I've got to find you the email. I wrote back, I go, that's nice. I said, if he wants to go to my kid's school and just give them some singing lessons before the spring sing, I'll be happy to show up and do some lunges with the players. And I remember feeling really insulted, like, oh, I can come to your house if I'm the help? Like, F off. Now I'm like, oh my God, what the hell was I being invited to? Like was I gonna drink the Gatorade and end up, God knows what happened to me after that? So that's my sort of.
Honestly, as soon as you said that just now, the visual I had in my head of you training athletes. No.
At his house.
No.
Ew.
Ew.
You know what? I did not like him, though. There was something about him, and I would hear rumors through the grapevine. So here's the thing. You're seeing all these clips of celebrities intimating that he's a scumbag. Oh, Ashton Kutcher. Oh man, that was dark. That was dirty. Like, that's too much to talk about on your show. The Kardashians. Oh yeah, we were out all night at the butt naked party. Whoa, that was a scandal. John Legend and Chrissy Teigen. Ooh, we can't talk about that on camera. Nobody talk about that on camera. Usher. I saw things I didn't understand. It was all there. Everybody was telegraphing it. Everybody knew. I'm so confused. And I hate to say this. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. Weigh in here.
Well, the most important thing, maybe heartbreaking, is Justin Bieber, at least from what we know so far.
I know.
When you sit back and re-listen to the lyrics of so many of his songs, when you watch his body language during them at concerts, when you watch some of the interviews that he has done recently and even not so recently, like, I actually was crying watching some of them with what we think now happened. And that is what breaks my heart, first and foremost, right? And he feels like one of many victims.
Did you see Suge Knight talk about this with Cuomo, by the way? Suge Knight
I did not see the Cuomo one.
Oh my gosh.
I heard about this. Tell me.
Okay, Suge Knight calls in from prison, basically insinuates that it's systemic abuse. I don't know any of these people. I'm not looking to get sued.
Yeah.
But it's like Jimmy Iovine and Clive Davis and this one and that one and this one. And this was the music industry, and they got Diddy, and then Diddy got Usher, and then Usher got Justin Bieber. And it's like hurt people. It almost feels like that generational family trauma where you watch the Menendez brothers, like the dad molested the older brother molested the little brother. And he goes on to tell the most disgusting story, and you can cut this if it's not. He talks about how they would take young artists and make them put a boiled egg in their rear end. And if the egg didn't break, they weren't ready. I have no idea what this means. It's on Cuomo's show.
This is what Suge told Cuomo?
Yes, and it's on these videotapes. So can you only imagine what has yet to come? And if you're a young kid who wants to be a star, whose parents have turned you over to Diddy's custody in some cases.
Yeah.
Who told, like, this is the initiation. This is what you have to do. It's really sick stuff. So much so that if I'm actually going to put on my tin hat for you right now and go full-blown conspiracy theory. I think he killed Tupac, and I think he killed Kim Porter, and I think he killed Aaliyah. There's no proof to this.
You are not the first person. You're not the first person I've heard say that, actually. And now, how could we not at least question it? And at the end of the day, I want to know, not because I'm nosy, because there needs to be some accountability. And big lesson, you mentioned at the beginning, all those parents out there with children who, whether you're models, young models, you got to send them to New York or send them to Paris and look at you have the world right here, or potential stars at the Disney Channel or anywhere else, right? Parents, hang on to those kids. You have to be involved in every single aspect and ask questions and be that helicopter mom, which I know you are and your wife is, and like I am. Listen, you know where I go with this, with everything, because you and I are very similar and very different in many ways that I would never change. I think it's great. Hashtag diversity of thought. We begin and end with that, and this world is a much better place. So, mwah, mwah, I love you.
Love you right
Thank
back,
you.
Mama. I'm sure I'll speak to you later.
Talk soon.